Most MVPs fail, not because you had a bad idea, but because founders unknowingly build the wrong thing entirely. If your MVP is not getting traction, there's a high chance you're making one of these three critical mistakes. After launching a dozen plus SaaS products and analyzing hundreds more, I found that 80% of MVPs aren't viable, and definitely aren't products. CB Insights studies show 42% of startups fail due to no marketing need. Here's what's actually happening. You have an idea, you validated it with a few key potential customers who say, yeah, I'd use that. You spend 3 months building what you think is the MVP. You launch it and then nothing, crickets. Maybe 1 or 2 signups, but those excited customers have already ghosted you and now you're stuck. Do you add more features? Do you pivot? Do you just start over? The problem isn't your effort. It's not even sometimes your idea. It's that you've been following advice from people who built MVPs decades ago. Eric Ries wrote The Lean Startup in 2011. The internet was a totally different place, and the bar for viable has changed completely. Users today expect a certain baseline of experiences. They need the authentication, they need the responsiveness, and they want decent enough user experience. The bar has raised a lot more because there's so many more competitors than 15 years ago. And so if you want an actual amount of feedback, you need engagement as well. So here's misconception number 1. Minimum means bare bones. Let's start with the biggest misconception. Founders think that minimum means as few features as possible. That's a completely wrong mindset, because what it actually means is the minimum version needed to learn what you need to learn so that you can grow faster. You can think about it this way. If you're building a project management tool, your MVP isn't a to-do list. That's not testing your actual value prop. Your MVP needs to be the minimum version that lets you test your core hypothesis. Here's a real example. There was a founder who was building a customer feedback tool. They wanted their MVP to be a basic survey form. No analysis, no dashboard, nothing. So I asked them, what's your hypothesis? And they said, companies want automated feedback analysis to spot trends. Do you see the problem? Their MVP couldn't test out their core hypothesis. What they needed was the analysis feature. That was part of the minimum. We cut other stuff instead, integrations, team collaboration, fancy charts, but the AI analysis, that needed to stay so that we can test the core hypothesis. So here's the mental model. Your MVP is the smallest experiment that can validate or invalidate your riskiest assumption. There's an author by Steve Blank who wrote The Customer Development Methodology, that MVP should test hypotheses. And the Y Combinator portfolio analysis shows successful MVPs focus on one core workflow, not 10 workflows done poorly. Misconception number 2 is the most painful, thinking that building the product is the hard part. I learned this the hard way on my 3rd SaaS a long time ago. I spent 4 months building the product, launched on Product Hunt, got 200 upvotes, but that only converted to 3 paid users. 3. That was when I realized the real problem wasn't the product, it was distribution. Here's what nobody tells you. At the MVP stage, your distribution strategy matters more than your product. You may have a reaction to this, and in fact, you may be a builder and you want to be focused on building, but here's the painful truth. You cannot get feedback on your product, on what you build, if you can't get users, if you can't get customers. So before you write a single line of code, ask yourself, who would be my first 10 users? How would I reach them? How would I get them to try out the product? Not, I'll post on Reddit. I'm talking about their names, their emails, LinkedIn profiles, verbal commitments, LOIs. One of our Liberate Labs clients did exactly this. They built an email list of 50 people that they personally recruited during the build phase. On launch day, 15 of them already became beta users and already had 3 customer interviews scheduled before lunch, and iterated twice in the first week based on real feedback. Paul Graham from YC had a great piece of advice that regularly gets misquoted, and it's that to do things that don't scale. At MVP stage, manual outreach to 100 perfect fit users beats viral mechanics trying to reach 10,000 wrong ones. Some of the largest products you know today recruited their first users manually and maintained a waitlist to ensure quality feedback. This data is worth its weight in gold, because now you can orient yourself in the right direction for long-term growth and not trying to chase hacks in the short term. Here's misconception number 3. MVP should be fast and cheap. All right, here's one of the most controversial. MVPs do not have to be fast. I know. You probably heard this advice from every founder influencer that you need to ship, just constantly be shipping, right? In 2 weeks, or you're just overthinking it. But here's what they're not telling you. And what I really want you to think from a first principles is, the goal really speed? Because what the goal should really be and what we should be optimized for is truth seeking. It's learning. Being fast can help you learn, but it could also help you learn the wrong things. So here's the math. If you're spending 1 month building an MVP that tests the wrong hypothesis, you have wasted a month. If you spend 2 weeks planning and 1 month building an MVP that tests the right hypothesis, then you are going to be ahead. I've watched founders burn through 3 MVPs in 6 months and learn absolutely nothing, because each one tested either too many things, they tested the wrong thing, they weren't optimized for learning. I've also seen founders spend 3 months on 1 MVP with the perfect setup and also getting customers beforehand, talking with people and really trying to internalize what the actual customer journey would be and what they were really thinking and the real pain points to solve. And that happened to make them validate the entire business model in the first week. So the real question is, what's the cheapest way to test my riskiest assumptions? Sometimes that's a landing page with some ads. Sometimes it's a Wizard of Oz MVP where you manually fulfill everything in the background. And sometimes, yes, it is actually building the thing, but building the right thing. Y Combinator's average time to first MVP is actually 2 to 3 months for B2B products, not 2 weeks. So here's the truth about MVPs. This can be summarized in a 3-part framework. So if all the advice is wrong, what's the right way to think about MVPs? Here's the 3P framework I use with every founder at Liberated Labs and how you can apply it to your idea today. 1, identify your riskiest assumption. Not your biggest feature idea, your riskiest assumption. What's the one thing, if you're wrong about, will kill the entire business? And trust me, there may be several. For example, if you build an AI-powered contract review software, your riskiest assumption isn't lawyers want faster contract reviews. You probably already validated that, and it's a logical assumption. The real risky assumption is, will lawyers trust AI recommendations for legal work? If that assumption is wrong, the product will fail no matter how good the features are. The riskiest assumptions can extend to a lot of different things, but one of the most common is people will pay for this. Will someone actually find your issue, your solution, painful enough to pay you for it and get off their existing way of doing things? Oftentimes, what I hear, the biggest competitor to a startup could be a Google Sheets. It could be an Excel document. But the thing is, you may wonder, that's so inefficient, it's so wrong. But that's your viewpoint. At the end of the day, the market wants what it wants. And if they don't want your software bad enough, your solution bad enough to get off their existing product, and on top of that pay you a lot, you have to really attach to a really painful thing. And if you get the wrong thing, the wrong pain, and how big that pain is, then you may be building a house of cards. Here's step number 2. Design the minimum test. What's the smallest, cheapest experiment that tests your assumption? For the contract software, the minimum test isn't building an AI at all. It might be manually reviewing contracts using your proposed methodology and presenting results to lawyers to see if they trust your recommendations. That's a $500 MVP versus a $50,000 MVP. So here's step number 3. Define your success criteria before you build. Write down, we know we're right if X happens. We know we're wrong if Y happens. And we need to see Z number of users to trust the data. For the contract example, that might be if 7 out of 10 lawyers say that they use your recommendations in real client work, we could be right. If fewer than 4 say yes, we're wrong. And we need to test with at least 20 lawyers to trust the pattern. See how specific that is? Not the wishy-washy, let's see what happens. You're designing an actual experiment. There's a great person by the name of Alberto Savio. There's something called the Pretotyping methodology, which tests the appeal before testing the implementation. Amazon had a similar process called working backwards, starting with a PR FAQ, a press release / FAQ that effectively allows people to imagine, what would the press release be? What would you talk about in your marketing deliverables? And if you present these marketing in front of people and they don't care about it, then you can assume that you never, even if you built it, would have been able to sell it anyways. So you see how we can present and move forward, pull in actually the reality of selling before building to identify, are we doing the right thing? Can make that very literal with these minimum tests. So make sure you define success before building. Let me give you 2 real examples. One that got it wrong and one that absolutely nailed it in our experience. Here's a bad MVP. There is this all-in-one tool. A founder I consulted with was building a social media management tool. Their MVP had posting, analytics, team collaboration, and content suggestions. It took them 5 months to build. When they launched it, users said things like, "This is confusing," and it doesn't do any of the things better than the tools I already use. So what was their riskiest assumption? Well, for one, they never really identified one. They assumed users wanted everything in one place, but they never tested it if users were actually willing to switch from their existing tools for that convenience. An 8-week MVP could have been best-in-class posting for one platform with one killer feature that existing tools don't have. So here's what a good MVP that could look like. One of our clients at Liberate Labs wanted to build automated customer onboarding for a B2B SaaS. Their riskiest assumptions: companies will pay for automated onboarding. Their MVP: no automation. They manually onboarded 5 customers using the workflow they wanted to automate, charged $2,000 per customer. All 5 of them paid. All 5 of them said they wanted to pay for the software version. Then they built the automation. Total MVP cost $0 in development, 2 weeks of time. Validated willingness to pay, proved the workflow worked, and had 5 customers ready to buy the real product. That's a good MVP. This manual first approach is often called a concierge MVP. Zappos started this way, where founders brought shoes from stores and shipped them. Airbnb's MVP was literally the founder's apartment. They tested, will people stay in someone's home before even building a platform? But here's the biggest mistake of all, the one that underlies everything we've talked about. Building an MVP for the user you wish you had instead of the user you can actually get. I see this trap everywhere. Founders build elegant, sophisticated products for users that don't exist yet. They're building for the Series B version of a company when you're building pre-seed. You're building for enterprise customers when you can only reach SMBs right now. Your MVP isn't for your vision customer. It's for your access customer. Whoever you can actually reach and sell to today. Once you prove value there, you can expand up market. But if you start by building for users you can't reach, you'll run out of runway before you learn anything. So ask yourself, who can I get in front of this month? That's who your MVP is for. Build for them, nail their problem, and then expand for there. All right, let's recap the 3 things you need to remember. 1, minimum means minimum to test your hypothesis, not testing your minimum features. 2, distribution strategy before product strategy. Know how you'll get your first 10 customers before you write code. 3, design your success criteria before you build. You're running an experiment, not building a monument. Here's what to do next. Take 30 minutes today and write down your riskiest assumption. Just that one thing. If you can't identify it, you're not ready to build yet, and that's okay. Get more data, talk to more people. That's the work. If you want help defining your MVP strategy, or you're a SaaS founder between 1 to 3 million in annual revenue and want to systematically add 300K to your revenue, I run Liberate Labs, and we do this exact work with founders every day. So check out the link in the description and we can have a chat. And if you found this valuable, I'll share more founders lessons like this on LinkedIn. I'm Jihad Iqbal. Come connect with me there. Now go test some assumptions. And remember, the best MVP is the one that proves you wrong fast so you can build something that is actually right.